I'm Mike LaCorte, the host of Leaders Podcast. Leaders Podcast gives me the opportunity to speak to some of the most influential leaders in the world of intelligence, investigation, and risk management. Today, I'm joined by Eric Peterson from California. Eric, welcome. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Before we
Likewise,
kick off, before we kick off, just give us a quick, short introduction, who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
So Eric Peterson, I'm an investigator in Southern California, so Orange County. Did 20 years in law enforcement, came out here from Chicago, and then been in field and executive protection for quite some time. But yeah, I love it.
So you were in Chicago, what, in law enforcement, doing what type of position did you have, Eric?
So I was just growing up there, and I did a part-time job when I was 18 just to see if I would like it, and then I came out here.
Oh, fantastic. And Orange County, California, what type of work do you do? I know you said investigation and security, but just give us a little bit more in terms of, is there a specific area of work that you tackle?
So we cover the entire state, but specifically in Orange County and LA County, a lot of surveillances, with relation to work comp and fraud and family law. A lot of criminal and civil cases on both sides, whether it's the victim or we're helping out attorneys. It just runs the gamut. What I've found with this career is, you'll get a call and then you'll learn about a new section of what we do, and then you just kind of pivot. I love that aspect of it. And then sometimes it's interesting. Some of these cases snowball. So over the years, I've had a lot of employee theft, employee issues, internal theft. So that combines the civil, criminal, and the surveillance and all the difficult process services we do.
Okay, so you cover a wide range of investigation services. Cool. And why investigations? Why did you get involved in that then? Why did you choose that as a career?
So my law enforcement career, I worked in the gang unit and gang investigations, and then narcotics. And so I love, that was the reason I got into law enforcement. My dad was actually in charge of detectives in Chicago PD, and the majority of his career was homicide. I've always been interested in it. I love it. I do love the tactics and then the planning and the advanced stuff for the executive protection. But I do love the puzzle game of investigations and taking something that's very convoluted and breaking it down to its most simplest form. So yeah, I love that strategy and that, thinking man's game.
Thinking man's game, providing solutions to clients in a time of need. How have you seen the industry change then, in terms of when you first got into it to where we are now?
I think equipment, and then I think that sometimes clients want to do things on their own, and I've used this database, or I've used this, and then the internet, and obviously AI's changed things. But I think technology and just advancing in thought and the speed of things, and like I was saying, a lot of times we're handling stuff for people that are victims of crime. And the police aren't that responsive when they're extremely busy or under manned, and so we just I think the society now, with the phones and how rapid information can be available, I think clients have an expectation for things to happen very quickly. So I think it's just with technology, it's just gotten better, I think.
Right. There's a few touch points that you hit across there, and your side of the world compared to where we are here in the UK, and I'm seeing a lot of similarities actually. One, the technology, great. AI. You mentioned AI. Now AI is on the end of every investigator's tongue around the world. How does AI affect our industry? How can we leverage AI? What are the downfalls? I've got clients doing background checks using LLMs. What clients are putting our findings through AI. What are the risks? How does AI risk our industry? How do you see it evolve?
I think the risks are confidentiality, and then matter of fact, you have to double check your work. So I'm pretty detail oriented, and I review reports multiple times before I send them to a client or an attorney. And I've noticed, even as yesterday, I had a pretty extensive employee case where we were doing interviews and breaking things down, and the first interview, it met it and I came up with some questions, and it wouldn't have been an appropriate question to ask this person based on the scope of work, and I called out AI on it, and it said, "Yeah, good catch." So I think that you can't just rely on something. Um, just like when we do database searches and we're locating difficult or people that are people that we're trying to find that are difficult to find for one reason or another, you got to get out in the street and knock on doors and check plates and talk to neighbors. You can't just rely on one particular database to say, oh well, that's where the person's living. So I think that, and then the confidentiality aspect. We just went to that NALI conference, and there were some fascinating presentations on that with respect to closing the loop, and because obviously it's going to be out there if you put documents in something.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing clients now using AI to communicate email, for example, when they're instructing investigators, take our advice, throw it through AI, then reply, and we're like, well, who are we talking to
exactly.
here? Right? So it becomes challenging. Yeah. The other thing you switched on was clients coming to you where they've gone to the authorities, the law enforcement, and there isn't the appetite, there isn't maybe the resources or the level of sort of senior type case for the law enforcement to act on. Is that the same challenges you've got in California? Talk to me a little bit about the private-public synergy and landscape there.
Yeah. So each city's different, and I grew up in a big city, and my dad worked for a big city, and my uncle and brother, and then I've worked in a bigger department, smaller places, and so the level of attention is different. Some departments will send officers out on calls that other departments may not. But in my opinion, it should be community oriented. It should be service oriented, and there should be good communication. And I think that with respect to law enforcement, you have somebody that is doing a job that is getting paid the same, and whether they make 10 arrests or 0 arrests or whatever, their level of initiative is not there. And I think that I just spoke to a client on Monday. They have over $2 million theft, and they reported it to a police department in Orange County. It's smaller, but bigger city compared to the others, and more active. And the detective flat out said, we may or may not be able to get to this. And so they're frustrated. So they hired me to get to the bottom of it. And essentially what I've done over the years, especially on these big cases, is package the case for them so the victim and my client can go in and go, here it is. Here's the evidence. And matter of fact, I just talked to a client. We did that for a couple of years ago, and the detective told him, yeah, we couldn't have done better because of the resources that they have and the caseload that they have, or the lack of resources. So I think that there's no sense of urgency when it comes to government employees at times. And I think when you or I get a call, if you or I get a phone call and we don't answer, we may lose a client. And that's happened when I've been busy. If I don't answer the phone, our reviews and on social media, and our reputation is everything. A police department can have a 1-star review, and they're still going to operate because they get the tax dollars and all that. So it doesn't matter. So I think that there's definitely, people are getting more creative and trying to solve their own problems, and hiring people like you and I to assist.
Yeah. And how are you finding the relationship then? Is there because I've always found relationships with authorities different in different jurisdictions around the globe. And my sort of interaction with US colleagues is that the door's a little bit more open. What's it like in California? Do they acknowledge private sector? Is there a synergy or?
I believe
What's
so.
your
I
thoughts?
think everybody's different. My number one rule,
Hmm.
because I've been in a detective working, violent crimes. Um,
Hmm.
so my number one rule is for the client, if it's been assigned to a detective, please let them know. I said, I'm not going to do any work unless you
Hmm.
let them know that I'm on board, and that you've retained me, because I don't want to step on anybody's toes. Because we actually had an attempted murder, arson, stalking case, and I told the client, let them know that I'm working it, and I'll talk to them off to the
Hmm.
side, which I did. And the client, over the course of this lengthy investigation, multiple jurisdictions, was getting frustrated because the police weren't communicating with them, or the district attorney. And I said, listen, you got to understand, especially since they knew this suspect previous, they're not going to disclose this information because it they don't want it to get back to people, and it's confidential, and they have to file these cases. So we have to respect that privacy. But my number one thing is I want them to know I'm involved, and I've had great experience, because I'm essentially doing their job for them. So I on one of them, we had a pretty significant um, theft of like rims and tires out of this company in Garden Grove, and I had a full confession, got the property back, and all I had to do was upload my files and speak to the detective. They filed the case, so they were happy. So I think it's incumbent upon investigators to be great with their communication
Hmm.
with law enforcement, because we're an extra set of eyes and ears, and we can help. But then also, hopefully, law enforcement can make sure that there's no ego involved, and we're all in it together.
You know what always fascinates me about US based investigators is the level of access to information you guys have in the private sector compared to us guys here across the pond. Your data sets are a lot more, provide a lot more, you know, information, TLO reports, PASEM, whatever, all the other state. I know you need to cross and verify, but for us, it's like, wow, there's a wealth of information here. What's the downside? Is there a downside?
I think there's a downside if you've got some people that are less than ethical. And I think that uh,
Mm,
one of the stories that I heard when I started out in this career, because in law enforcement, you have access to way more stuff, and there's all these other little side databases. And, we could ping a phone immediately through dispatch if somebody's suicidal, and we've done that, and it could be rapid. But I
mm,
think the downside would be, like somebody using it for a bad intent, or not vetting the client.
mm.
And the one of the stories I heard when I first started was when we run license plates. So each state is different as well,
Right.
but when we run license plates, um, we don't get the address. So we're going to have to run the name, and hopefully, come up with a match. And so, because an actress was stalked and killed because of that, and they started that rule years ago. And so,
Mm,
yeah, I think it's just got to be properly vetted. And the databases, they'll come to your house or have you do like a virtual inspection and make sure that you fit criteria,
mm,
and they'll suspend people's accounts if they're doing things wrong. So yeah, I mean, information is king, as you know, in this
mm.
in this business.
I think, I've seen 70, 80-page TLO reports, and you think, well, I've got to go through this now to see which ones are false negatives or false positives, and try and, differentiate where's the facts in all of this. Because, it's like associated addresses, 2 pages of addresses, so that could be cumbersome, right?
Yeah, and not only that, is you're involving people and data entry, and people can make mistakes. So there's been times where a TLO report, we go to serve somebody, and it's the same exact name, but it's a totally different person.
Yeah.
So at some point, that data entry cross pollinated, and between two legitimate people, and like I said, if you're not out there physically,
Yeah.
but yes, and we get that a lot, when we're trying to locate people. So you definitely got to do your due diligence and get out there on the street.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you about associations. Obviously, we were in Nally together in Nashville. Great city, good time, great conference. Conferences, investigators. Why join them? If you're an investigator, why join a conference or an association? Sorry, not a conference, an association. What ones should you join? How do you navigate those? What are the benefits? What are the issues? How do you fit that in if you're a small 1-2 man shop, right? There's an expense attached to that. How do you take a week out of your own business to go and try and network? Explain your journey and your thought processes about conferences, associations, and events.
So, just on a side note, when I first started this business, and I'm very proud of the workers that I have and the reputation that we have, I started to join a business group in general. And some of my best clients are from people not even in the industry, but attorneys and people that know attorneys and things like that. So I'm still in a local business group in my area. And I started, I've talked to different investigators when I started, and some people are pro the associations and conferences, and some people are against. In my opinion, I think you need to seek out training. I think that we need to be better, probably worldwide in terms of training. And I heard some comments at Nally where people want more information, and so networking is always huge. A person, and now the person that referred me to come to Nally gives me a good amount of work, and I'm her Southern California person. So that's invaluable. You never know where business is going to come. And then the training, and then people do business with people that they know, they like, they trust, and that's great. And then it's interesting because when I went to Nally, then I ended up joining the World Association, WAD, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how that expands, because sometimes I've gotten a reputation of, hey, do you know somebody here, or do you know somebody there, and whether it's from a client or another investigator, and I always want to help out other investigators, and I think that the thing that I really liked about law enforcement was the camaraderie and the teamwork, and we're all working towards the same mission. And I think that some investigators like yourself and others that we know have that mentality as well. There's plenty of work. I don't need to open off an office in another city or what. There's plenty to do, and I've gotten some good people out of it. So yeah, that networking, and I see some like subgroups that are coming out, and it's I think it's beneficial. I like the local ones, and then I like I think you're always going to get individuals that may not have that mentality that you and I have, but I was very impressed with Nally. So
yeah, get yourself out there, get networking, get connected, because there's always you don't know what you don't know as well, right? So all right, and I take it you attend the Cali events as well. Is that something that you're a member of?
So I was before, and then I kind of got too busy, and then now I got back into it. I'll probably go to it, but I think, I don't know, the impression that I had when I first joined it, it wasn't that as collaborative as Nally was, and so I think that's changing. But I don't know. I think sometimes people may think you're going to take business or something like that, or maybe they are afraid of the competition or something. But I'm getting back into it because the guy that I mentored actually got into it, and sometimes we'll go to those mixers and stuff. So there's good people.
Yeah, because there's I think it's almost, if not the largest in terms of numbers, one of the largest in the world, Cali, right? In terms of a group, or was.
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, this is the size of the state and the amount of investigators.
Yeah. So say young guys, Eric, with your experience and what you've seen in the industry in the private sector, so you've got someone young who's, I don't know, coming out of, education, college, or coming out of the military or the, law enforcement and wanting to join the private sector. How would you guide someone? What sort of challenges would someone young coming into this industry face? And what type of advice would you give them?
I would say try to get a mentor or a couple, and I everybody that emails me or calls me and asks if they can do work or if they can for an internship, I always say, I always ask them, what are you into? Because not everybody, I have people that love surveillance. I have people that love, the executive protection side of things. I have people that love doing backgrounds and want to be at home with the kids. And so you got to find that passion and just not focus on um, maybe the cost of things or whatever. Because, the training classes and the network events, sometimes can add up, but it's going to be worth it. And just to keep forging and educating yourself. And Cali has a like an introductory, PI course. And I always recommend people take that, like, for new members and new investigators, so they understand the legal aspects of things. But then if you're a business person, you definitely got to set things up right. But to have a mentor or a couple is huge. That helped me tremendously when I first started. And it's interesting because I've grown more than some of my mentors, because they just, a lot of people, as just want to be that one-stop shop or the one-man show, and maybe not have employees. So in California, a lot of people don't want to have employees for one reason or another.
What about your biggest industry achievement? What is anything that stands out in your career? Big case, a challenge, a milestone?
The biggest case is the one that I mentioned, and I'll be, the victims want to do a podcast on it, so I'll be doing a podcast on my channel. It essentially, it was a stalking, then an arson, and it turned, because of money. This guy thought he was owed money by this person's sister, and to see the impact that I've had on them and their family. And I mean, they almost died. That he shot into the house. And but essentially what I did with that case was it was multiple cities. It went into Mexico. It went into different counties. And I took the entire thing and broke it down into one report with the evidence and all of it, which helped the Orange County DA file the case along with the police department. So that, in my opinion, just because of the impact of their lives, and I'm very close with them now. They're really good people. We don't live far from each other. So I'm very proud of that. And I think when it comes to investigative work as opposed to law enforcement, sometimes in law enforcement, maybe you go to a call or handle an investigation, you're done, and your net is a lot smaller. My net is so wide. People call me from all over the world, the country, when they have things that need to be handled here. So that would be my greatest accomplishment.
And the other thing, Eric, I suppose, when you're dealing with the private sector, you form these relationships, right, with the client over time, because the most intimate details about their case, their situation. They tell you in confidence some of the things they don't probably tell their closest friends or family members. And you're in this really weird world where you're involved, you're the one that knows, and you've got all the information, you've connected the dots, and you're also this sounding board. And when the case is closed, that emotional journey that a client has gone through over a period, it could be weeks, months, or years, comes to an end. And that sounding board, that Eric Peterson that they've been talking to for weeks, stops. And then there's a attachment and a friendship there. How do you deal with that? Because there's a lot going on, right? Especially with the case you just described. And I'd love to hear your podcast once that's out with the client. But how do you deal with all of the other external bits that nobody really trains you for? You're an investigator by trade. You're not well, some would say, but some may be like a psychologist, an aide. You're providing other soft skills that affect the dynamic of the relationship. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it depends on the client. I've had some clients that I've helped that, are, this one woman who's married to this older guy, and I've had to just tell her, hey, you can't. She would call at 7 in the morning, 9 at night, and so I had to set those boundaries.
Right.
As it pertains to the other the couple that I was talking about, their kids go to school with uh, my stepdaughter and then the neighbor's kids, and that's how I was referred to them.
Right.
And so there's already that kind of circle, and of course I didn't tell my wife what anything about anything other than, hey, I'm working, and and the woman would confide with my wife, and they would go work out and all this stuff. So yeah, and it's tough because you're so they would vent and they would talk, and so we did establish that friendship. But that's a kind of, it's a rarity.
Mm.
Usually it's just done, but because of the proximity and and the type of case, and you're right, you hit the nail on the head. There was a lot of that emotional dump, and I saw changes in them in their lives. The one guy used to drink and now he doesn't drink, and then the guy wasn't too religious, now he's really religious, because he's like, man, somebody was watching over him that time. They were all down on the first floor, and then they ended up going to bed on the second floor, and then those shots rang out and the bullets went through the house and the drywall and stuff and couch where they were sitting.
Jeez.
So they were very blessed to have no injuries, the entire family, that particular night. But yeah, because they had nobody because there was their whole family that was being kind of targeted, even like the extended family. So it's not like they can turn to them.
No.
So yeah, I've seen the growth and the change, and they're a lot better now. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, because as an officer or detective, or maybe if somebody was a little bit further away geographically, I wouldn't really talk to them unless they called.
Yeah. Okay. What makes a strong investigator, Eric? What skills make a strong investigator?
I think curiosity, creativity, the ability to just listen. So I think sometimes we can get type A, and say that, oh, well, this is how it should go, but you have to keep an open mind. And after leaving law enforcement, I had a personal change with respect, because I think in law enforcement you get that tunnel vision, and you're like, this guy did it, and this was what happened, and well, okay, but people are falsely accused, and some things happen, and officers and DAs make mistakes, and so I think that that openness and that curiosity, and just stepping back and taking things as they come, and when I talk to a client, and this is a good kind of sales tip for anybody, I'll always listen, and then I'll say, okay, this is what I recommend, and here's what we've done in the past and how it's worked, and then and 99% of the time I'm or more than that, getting retained. Or I'll say, listen, I don't recommend doing anything, and why don't you connect me with your attorney, and let's work together on this, because I don't want to waste our time and your money. And I've gotten reviews based on that. People said, hey, that integrity is huge, because if you're good at a business and you multiply and you work your butt off, you're going to succeed, and that money will come. But you're not always going to get somebody commenting on your integrity on social media, or a review site. And in my opinion, that's huge, because clients will check that, and they'll try to get a profile of what you are. But yeah, that number one thing is just sit back and listen to the client, and just systematically go through things. And if you're stuck, reach out to other investigators. I don't mind. I love talking and linking up with other investigators, and talking about different cases and scenarios.
Yeah, thank you. Good advice. I'm going to finish up on this final one, Eric. What's the next chapter for you in your career? What are you looking to achieve? What's the next milestone? What are you working on?
Well, over the past over a year, I've been really getting into trying to help the general public out with tips and things like that. And I want to come up with a training program to where I can help people that want to get into this line of work, because sometimes it feels bad. I even had a guy call me from Hawaii, say, "Hey, I'll move from Hawaii to work with you," and because he wanted to get into this field. But as you got to be competent in these certain aspects of what we do. And so I want to come up with a training program to assist. And one of the greatest joys I get out of this is helping people in that respect, and helping people get jobs and money and be successful. So that's the next chapter in one way, shape, or form, some sort of training program where I can help.
Fantastic. Really looking forward to seeing how this training plan develops. Eric, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Eric's contact details, web details and podcast details are coming up on the screen now. You've been listening to another episode of Leaders Podcast. Thank you.